This video, we're going to talk about pricing. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do pricing per se. It depends on where your agency is and also some preferences that you might have also based on the offer that you've created. So what I'm going to do in this video is really simplify things and just present you with 3 different pricing strategies that we've used throughout the history of our agency, and then also walk you through when these are best and most appropriate for your agency depending on where you are. In the offer section, we talked about this pricing matrix when it came to offers, right? This was really more for you to start to understand the relationship between your offer and your impact and what you could potentially charge for that. And then also just the level of effort that you're gonna have to put in to collect that money. This is really a thought exercise to get you started thinking about how to price your offer, but we still need to hone in on a more specific strategy, because you will always be asked by prospects to justify it. How did you arrive at this? How do you price your services? Why are you charging X for Z? And to just show them an offer design chart isn't going to be enough to justify the cost of that. So we want to really hone in on a very specific type of strategy. And it's also important to keep in mind that pricing is dynamic. This is something that you will always be working on throughout the life of your agency. You're always going to be looking to raise rates. You're always going to be looking to get more, have a greater impact, how to upsell clients, add lifetime value to clients. These are all conversations around pricing. So again, this video is going to help you understand the different strategies that are available to you and when you can deploy them. So the first strategy that I want to present is hours-based pricing that's influenced by value. The biggest knock that I get on this is, well, I don't want to get in that situation where I'm stuck trading my time for revenue. I agree with you. Because if you're in that situation, then you basically have a job. However, using hours does not necessarily mean that we're charging per hours. It's really as a baseline to understand how much time we need to put into the service to understand our profitability, and to also get the client to buy in to understand what are we doing for what they're paying us. So very simply put, hours-based pricing is just taking a look at the number of hours that go into a project or into a deliverable or into a campaign times by our hourly rate. And I have a follow-up video that has a calculator for you that's going to show you exactly how to calculate your hourly rate that you should be charging to clients, also showing you what your kind of hourly cost is internally. This model is really best for younger growing agencies. I like to say up to 50K. Again, that's just a pay band. I actually have worked with agencies that are doing millions of dollars a month that are still doing hourly based pricing. It's not necessarily something that you can grow out of, but I really do think that this is the easiest way to get started, because a lot of people get started with just flat fee pricing. I'll take $500 a month. I'll take $1,500 a month. That cost that they're charging the client is not necessarily tied to anything internally, which leads to issues with margins, which leads to issues with people management and hiring and staffing, which leads to scope creep, which leads to a whole lot of issues that can cause a lot of headaches down the line if you're just using hours up front to understand what your costs are internally and then pricing based off that. It's much easier to manage your agency. So just some final thoughts on why you should use it. It ensures the best possible margins for your agency because you know exactly what your service is costing you, so you exactly know how much to charge for it. It's the best method to sell long-term retainers. So I know I talk a lot in here about kind of different structures for how to do work, whether that's sprint, whether that's short-term, whether that's long-term. Hours is the best way to sell long-term retainers because what you can do is you can clearly demonstrate how much time you have to put in over what period of time to justify an ongoing cost. And just piggybacking off that too, when a prospect sees the input that you're putting into it, they understand the cost that you're charging them. It's going to be 10 hours a month for technical SEO, 5 hours a month for keyword research, 5 for link building. That's 20 hours per month. This is what we're going to be working on. This is what you can expect when you can expect it. And this is what our hourly rate is. It's very easy for them to grasp and understand that, as opposed to just saying, well, we're going to charge you $10,000 a month because we think that we can drive $20,000 a month in business. You got to have a lot more clout. You got to have a lot more reputation. You also got to be solving a very specific problem for a very high ticket type client on the back end. Ours is also much easier to deal with scope creep. Again, whenever you're going fixed price or value-based pricing, you get stuck charging what you're charging for the work. That's not necessarily tied to any work that you might have to put into it. If you want to go value-based pricing, you have to make sure that you're putting in the minimum amount of effort and charging the most for it. Whereas ours, you can easily justify more work. If they come to you and they're like, hey, Ryan, we really want you to do a competitive analysis. Great, that'll take 5 hours. We're going to tack it onto the existing agreement. We can get started next week. Anything that they ask for, that they're asking you to do, that's not clearly defined in the scope, that's tied to a set number of hours, you can easily just tack on more for. And this is the same thing with extending contracts too. You know, you do a technical audit. Hey, we don't have a developer, Ryan. Okay, that'll be an extra 15 hours for us to implement this stuff for you. So it's a very easy way to upsell more work. It's very seamless. You don't have to go through massive justifications of the proposal process after you close the initial deal. It's just a matter of tacking on hours, sometimes via email. And this is also a very easy way to continuously raise your prices over time. Again, value-based pricing is something that you can charge based on the output of what you're doing. When we're doing this, the value goes into your hourly rate. So when we talk about how to calculate an hourly rate, I'm going to show you how to take all of your expenses, all your costs, and then also tack on what your desired margin is. Your desired margin is where you can really start to inflate your rate. So to go from $50 an hour to $100 an hour to $200 an hour while doing the same amount of work is a very easy way to increase the value of your retainers, right? Increase the value of what you're charging by increasing the value of your time and justifying that to the client. And it's very, very easy to do that over time as you get more results, as you start getting dialed in with the right type of client. When you're working with people who understand the value of SEO, you can ratchet up that price. The other thing too is that you don't necessarily have to display the number of hours. What you can do, and what we do a lot of times, like for our sprint model, for example, our sprints are based on the input that we have to put into it, but we don't show them the number of hours that it takes, because then we don't, again, want to get stuck in that conversation of time for money, how long is this taking you, etc. We're using hours to price out how much it's going to cost to complete that one sprint. But hours is still the baseline of that. And again, we're just continuously ratcheting up the value of our time internally and then pushing that externally then, when we're never actually showing them the number of hours that it takes. Just the cost to complete each sprint, which again is also tied to the value, which we'll talk about in a second. So this is somewhat of a hybrid model. That's why I said it's hours-based, but to value influence. The hours-based is important because then you're understanding the ins and outs of your agency, how much time your service is taking you. And then also you can continuously ratchet up that value by increasing your hourly rate. So we have a pricing template that we're going to give you. We're going to talk about in the coming videos for exactly how to fill this out and cost out what a project is going to take based on the number of hours that goes into it. The next pricing type that we have is going to be project-based, or what I call a tripwire. And what this is selling AKA a splinter project or a one-time project at a much lower cost or a much lower price point that allows you to get your foot in the door with a client and then allowing you to upsell more on the back end of it. The example I use all the time is taking something like our website quality audit that we give to you in the Blueprint training and selling that as a standalone project. This works best for agencies who have a very productized service or a very well streamlined deliverable that you can easily sell as a one-off cost that you can either break even on or make a little bit of money on, but with the long-term goal of getting your foot in the door, doing good work, and then upselling more work. And the website quality audit is perfect for that because it's a strategy-based deliverable that comes in, finds a bunch of errors, shows them how to complete it, and then those errors can also lead to more work. So for example, we go in, we run a website quality audit, we charge $1,000 for it. We're selling them on the fact that, hey, the output of this is going to help you to unclog all technical issues so you don't have to pay an agency a ton of money to do technical work. And then it's also going to feed you what the next steps for a campaign should be. So you can take that and work on it yourself, or you can partner with us to, do the keyword research, do the link building, to the content strategy. We're with you every step of the way. And that's why our sprints work so perfectly with this, because we're basically using the website quality audit. We now call it the strategy sprint, to go in, charge a good amount of money for it, make money on that, but go in and build a relationship, find a bunch of errors that we're basically getting paid to do that you would be doing them during the proposal process, and then upselling them more work on the back end. The key here, though, to me is, again, not only having that great productized deliverable, which we're giving you inside the Blueprint training, take the website quality audit, take any other one of the templates that we're giving you. You can sell that as a standalone kind of tripwire productized service. That's project-based, one-time fee, very easy decision point. But the key here is having some sort of sales rep or process on the back end, because where people fail with this is they'll go in and they'll run this and they'll charge for it, and then they won't end up upselling them anything because they didn't have the proper processes on the back end to get them back on a call and to upsell them more work and to present them more work off the back end of it. So the key here is really having somebody who's dedicated to either an account manager or a sales rep to, once that deliverable is done, making sure that that deliverable really plans out what the next steps could be that they can, again, take internally and use, or just pay you to do more of. That's key. And that's where most people fail in this, is they're able to run the deliverable, but you're not going to make that much money on the one-off project without upselling them more work on the back end. So again, some more examples of this: website quality audit, doing like a competitive analysis, doing a paid strategy, even building like a microsite or a website, using that at very close to just cost for you, that you can get them in, be like, oh, you're going to build a website for $2,000 that looks like this? Awesome, I'm in. And then off the back of that, you're selling them a long-term retainer. So if you do a lot of web design, it's really easy to productize or templatize a specific type of website for a specific type of client, sell them that, and then upsell them longer retainer work on the back end. So Why use it? This has a really high close rate. Again, when you're making an offer to someone saying, hey, we'll run an audit for you for $250, $500, $1,000, whatever it is, that another agency is going to charge you $10,000 for, and we'll have it done in 2 weeks. It's a very easy decision point for them to make, low effort, low cost, low friction to get them in the door. And once you have that, again, this goes back to the tripwire concept that's been around in internet marketing for years. The tripwire concept is really patented by internet marketers, where they sell you like a $7 ebook. They know once they have your credit card, it's a psychological thing. Once you've paid and once you've kind of brokered and entered that relationship and been onboarded, then you're going to be much more likely to buy something much more high ticket on the end, especially because whenever somebody pays for something, they're actually going to consume it. And if they consume it, then you have a chance to sell them more work. So again, the key here is to get in there with a very, very templated, very easy to deliver, very low price point, something that you could basically get somebody to convert on the phone with, and then get in there and do good work. And then once you do the good work, make sure that you have a process on the back end to get on a call with them to review it. And the output of that call should not only be a ton of value for them based on what they're paying you for that deliverable, but also upselling of more work off the back end. So again, we do this all the time with our sprints. We'll do one sprint and then we'll sell them sprints off the back end. But again, we've really built out a process and have a dedicated sales team to make sure that as soon as 1 week before a sprint is lapsing, we're making sure to schedule a follow-up call with that customer to get on the phone, review everything that we've done, and then present them more opportunities for them to grow. That's the key to making this non-long-term retainer work, is that just because we're not selling long-term retainers doesn't mean we don't want to sell them ongoing work. We're removing some of the security blanket by not doing long-term contracts, but we have to hedge on that by having more conversations with them and making sure that we're constantly getting in front of them when sprints are lapsing every couple of months to then have conversations about doing more sprints for them. So I really like this for agencies that are really looking to scale, that might be stuck, just kind of doing hourly based pricing. And you can use a project based offer like this, or a tripwire product, or a foot in the door, or a splinter offer like this to get in and sell a lot of work very quickly, especially if you're trying to break in with larger companies, right? If you're stuck at $50K a month because your retainer size is kind of small, if you develop an audit that will allow you to get your foot in the door with larger companies and just take what you're already doing and sell them more just because, they have a larger budget and they're willing to pay more for good SEO work or good marketing work, then this is a really good offer for you to entertain and figure out how to integrate into your existing sales process. So the final one that I'll recommend is impact or value-based. And this is probably what you hear a lot of people pushing you towards. The challenge is with SEO agencies, it's really, really hard to do this because when it comes to paid agencies, they can much more easily predict the output of a campaign. So it's important to understand too that value-based and impact-based pricing is not performance-based pricing. We're not taking a percentage of revenue. We're not taking a percentage of leads. We're not paying per action or per result. We're still getting a cost or a retainer, again, that we need in order to justify our internal costs so we can make money. And that's really hard to do when it comes to SEO because there's so many variables that go into success. So if you're going to do this, there's a couple of key factors that you really have to take into place. And that's also why I have this for, scaling agencies that are trying to break past $250 a month, because this is really how you're going to start making more money, is doing value-based. Because the really good thing about value-based is that this is how you're going to make the most money. So value-based pricing is using the projected results as a means to cost out the retainer. Again, key thing here is retainer. It's not pay per lead. It's not pay per revenue. It's not affiliate deals. This is a retainer-based agreement, but you're justifying that retainer based on the impact of the results or the value that that you can drive. So this is really best for agencies who've really got a niche area specialized in and really dialed in, and especially if that niche has a very high customer value. So like plastic surgeons, attorneys, anything that has a high price point or high average order value when it comes to e-commerce. And then also you've really got to have a proven track record to do this, because if you're going to walk in and pitch someone, $50,000 a month for SEO work, that has to be tied to some sort of result that they can justify paying that amount for. They're not just going to pay for $50,000 worth of hourly work when that's not going to result in more money for them. So once you get into a certain revenue number in terms of retainer cost per month, you've got to have some sort of impact or value based in here to really justify what that cost is. Otherwise, people are going to be like, I'm not paying $100,000 a month just for you to do technical audits. You got to be driving some sort of business results for us. And the key thing here too is business results don't always mean revenue. You look at something like the Blueprint training here. We're able to continuously ratchet up our prices. We do value-based pricing here because we're continuously driving more value and impact for clients. You pay us $20,000 for coaching and consulting. I know without a shadow of doubt that you're going to make more money than that. If I help you close one more client from working with us, then you're going to make more money. and it's going to justify what you're paying us. It's a little bit easier to do that though, because we're not doing the work for you, we're doing it with you. So when you're using the done with you service model, it's a little bit easier actually to impact value, because again, if they're paying you $20,000 for Facebook ads work, they're going to expect $20,000 or more in return, directly in terms of black and white. But when you're doing more of a coaching consulting model, there's indirect ways that you can influence revenue. If I can impact the way that you think, if I can impact your pricing strategy, that's probably going to be more than $20,000 worth of value for you. So you got to be thinking a little bit differently here. That's not just money in, money out in terms of ROI. It's impacting the overall value of a business and how you can directly come in or indirectly come in and influence that. So some examples that I want to share with you is one is it's Rankings.io. It's owned by a friend of mine. His name is Chris Dreyer. They're on pace to do $10 million in revenue this year. They only work with personal injury attorneys, and each one of those accounts is worth at least $50,000 a month for them. And they only do SEO. And the reason why they're able to do that is because their process is so dialed in, their niche is so dialed in. They only work with PI attorneys. They've got tons of track record and results. And they know that if they can help them get to the top of Google, one case worth for a PI attorney is worth well more than that. So they're able to easily justify what they're charging based on the expected output of closing a couple deals based on the track record of doing that for other PI attorneys. So that's one example of how you can go value-based. Another one is going to be Coding is for Losers. This is our other company here. What we do there is we help agencies to build very customized solutions. Basically, a lot of the stuff that you see in the blueprint, we can help you do that for you. Spreadsheets, reporting templates, dashboards, whatever it is that you need, all custom based on what it is that you need. And the reason why we go value-based there and not necessarily time input is because we have such a unique and specialized offer that nobody else in the market is really doing it. So we can directly go in and not necessarily have other anchors in terms of competitive pricing for them to compare against us. So we're able to come in and price that solely on the amount of value that they'll receive. For example, if we come in and build you a dashboard for your sales team, how much time, how much money, how much communication is that going to save you on? Quite a bit. And the final example here is just going to be in the coaching consulting world. So you look at somebody like Jay Abraham, who charges like $100,000 for like a couple of coaching calls. Why is he able to do that? Because he's able to impact that much in terms of your revenue and your thinking and your thought processes. Everything. He's able to come in and have that much indirect value on a business that people are willing to pay for. Again, same thing here at the Blueprint Platinum that I just gave you. So why use this? Well, very simply, it allows you to charge the maximum amount with the minimum amount of effort without putting in more effort, I should say, right? So with hours, you constantly have to work more, right? Hours for money to get that money. You can always ratchet up your hourly price, but you're still charging hours for dollars. Here, you don't have to do anything more. You're just focusing on how you can increase the value and the impact. And also by doing that and streamlining your service. So a lot of what we're teaching you here is gearing you towards stripping down your service so you can have a maximum impact. So again, you're not necessarily saying I have to do 20 hours worth of work every month to meet my revenue goals, but instead you can just say, I just need to run this very simple process to give you the impact that you need and charge what I want you to do that for. So those are the three pricing models. We're going to unpack those more as we go through this. The final thing that I wanted to cover here is all about time tracking. So look, this is not an exercise of Big Brother, and everyone should be tracking their hours internally, even if you're doing complete value-based pricing, because you still need to understand a lot of things about your business to ensure that your pricing is always on point, to create a feedback loop for operations so you know exactly how much time you're putting into things versus how much you're getting out of them, to remain profitable a lot of times. I can't tell you how many agencies we partner with that have no idea what their internal numbers look like. And they have no idea how much they should be charging. They're just going off of industry standards and having no tracking or insight into what they're doing internally. And finally, it allows you to hire effectively. You'll know exactly where you're deficient, exactly the roles that you need to hire for, and when you need to hire those people based on the efforts of your current team. So we use Clockify. It's a very simple solution. I actually have an SOP that will show you exactly how to use it. I'm not going to get into like how to do time tracking here. It's pretty boring and dry stuff. So I gave you an SOP. Within that SOP, there's a video there that will show you and your team exactly how we set up our time tracking, exactly how we use it. So you can just check that out on your own time. Again, I don't want to go through it here because it's pretty dry stuff. I want to focus mainly on just pricing, but tracking your hours is incredibly important and something that very few agencies do. And it's a large reason why very few agencies have good handle on their numbers and their profitability, and they're actually hitting the margins that they want. So in the coming videos, I'm going to unpack these pricing models a little bit more and show you how to put them into actual action. I'll see you in the next video.